From the Appalachian shadows emerges an ominous harbinger, the Mothman, a supernatural entity linked to modern tragedies with eerie precision. Sightings foreshadowed disasters like the Silver Bridge collapse and 9/11 itself. We unravel the most chilling Mothman premonitions where the line between premonition and reality blurs.
Off with my favorite topic, cryptids with the Flatwoods monster. The initial report of this creature is incredibly odd. This is not like most cryptids you hear about. The incident occurred on the night of September 12th, 1952, when 6 youths were playing a football game which was suddenly interrupted when the sky was lit up by a bright fireball-looking object that plummeted towards the earth, landing in a hillside. The boys, joined by a local woman by the name of Kathleen May, went to investigate. When they got to the hill, there was suddenly another burst of bright light. They turned to look in the direction of it and saw what was soon deemed to be the Flatwoods monster. It looked to be about 12 feet tall. It was Christmassy because it had a red face and wore bright green clothing. Most odd though was that its head was shaped like the ace of spades, and it was floating in midair towards the group. The creature was never seen again, but everyone in the group swore up and down that they saw what they saw. Was it an alien, a ghost, some other bizarre creature, a mix of all three? Perhaps one day it'll come back to interrupt another game of nighttime football, but for now, the Flatwoods monster lives on in the hearts of many West Virginia locals in the form of legend. Next up we have Ogua. Ogua is an elusive creature which is said to roam the Monongalia River of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Native tribes were familiar with this aquatic creature, warning European settlers of its presence. Described as a large aquatic beast, Ogua was known for its ability to snatch victims from the water's edge with its powerful jaws and drag them beneath the river's surface, where it would drown and store them in its den later. If you think you're safe as long as you don't get too close to the water, not quite the case. Ogua can also survive on land. With 4 stubby legs instead of fins or flippers, it can swiftly strike at prey on the shore and chase them down if it really needs to. Stories often recounted the creature's reddish-brown, turtle-like appearance, measuring nearly 20 feet in length and weighing approximately 500 pounds. Its long, thick tail left deep slide marks in the earth as it dragged its victims back into the water. Some researchers speculate that Ogua legends may have originated from a rogue alligator that ventured into the river through the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. Other people say that an oversized alligator or snapping turtle might be the culprit. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston. It operated from 1864 to 1994 before finally being shut down, and most of the buildings on the property are prohibited for visitors. They're structurally unsound and unmaintained, but other parts of the facility are open for ghost tours, ghost hunts, and even overnight stays. As with many facilities like this back in the day, the practices taking place were cruel and inhumane. Mental health was not dealt with anywhere close to, how it is now, and the place had only been built to house 250 patients, but at one point there were closer to 2,400 patients at the facility. That is some pretty severe overcrowding, and overcrowding in combination with already poor treatment of patients, can only imagine what kind of hell these people were going through. And it's for this reason that the now abandoned asylum is believed to be haunted, with the spirits of the patients still trapped within its walls. Number 7, the Sodder children disappearance. On Christmas Eve of 1945, there was a terrible fire at the Sodder family home. The parents, 2 Italian immigrants, George and Jenny, and 4 of their 9 children managed to escape, but the other 5 perished in the fire. Or did they? The thing is, their bodies were never found. Now, if there were just 1 or 2 who weren't found, okay, maybe they got a little extra crispy, just turned to dust. But none of them turning up, that's pretty odd, and this was a big part of the reason that the parents believed that they were still alive. They also didn't agree with authorities when they said the fire had started from an electrical issue. George attested to the fact that the home was just recently rewired and inspected, so if the 5 young family members hadn't died in the fire, then where were they? George and Jenny believed that they had possibly been kidnapped and that the fire was arson, with the perpetrators being members of the Sicilian mafia. George had been very outspoken about his criticism of the fascist government of Italy. Number 6, we have the Eaton Tunnel. The Eaton Tunnel in West Virginia, also known as the Lost Tunnel, is said to be haunted. Built as part of the Parkersburg branch of the Northwestern Virginia Railroad in 1857. This tunnel, along with 22 others, witnessed the loss of a number of lives during its construction. Reports of haunting experiences in and around the Eaton Tunnel include eerie incidents that date back to its construction. In 1854, a man met his demise when rocks fell on him while building the tunnel. In 1855, Terry Duffy tragically lost his life when a rope carrying rocks accidentally caught him and sent him plummeting 125 feet down the shaft. The tunnel's dark history continued in 1865 when a rock fell, claimed the lives of 3 men and seriously injured a woman. Cholera swept through the nearby mining camp in 1866, leading to the deaths of 15 people in just 4 days. Rock falls in 1867 and 1875 claimed the lives of multiple workers. And train accidents in 1877, 1890, and 1907 resulted in even more fatalities. So numerous tragedies are associated with the Eaton Tunnel, so it comes to no surprise that people have reported hearing ghostly voices from deep within it. Some have claimed to hear the soft voice of a woman pleading for help. Others have heard the chatter of men as though they were a group of laborers working inside the tunnel. Next up is the haunted West Virginia Penitentiary, said to be one of the most haunted prisons in the United States, if not the world. It operated from 1876 until its closure in 1995. The prison has a long history of violence, brutality, and death. The overcrowded and unsanitary conditions gave rise to a multitude of violent incidents, riots, deadly clashes among inmates. Then you have the electric chair. In its earlier days, public hangings were also conducted within the prison. So given the grim history of violence and death at this Gothic-style prison, a number of reports of paranormal activity have surfaced over the years. The building, which is still standing today, offers ghost tours to visitors and investigators, and many have reported unsettling experiences during their visits. At our number 4 spot, we have the case of Mamie Thurman. On June 22nd, 1932, the body of a woman was found in a blackberry bush on 22 Mine Road near Holden by a young boy. Her throat had been slashed and there were 2 gunshot wounds in her head. It seemed that the motive here was personal, and it wasn't just the brutality of the attack either. Robbery had been ruled out as she had expensive jewelry on her. So, who did it and why? Well, 2 suspects were arrested: Harry Robertson, Mamie and her husband's landlord, and Charles Stevenson, Harry's handyman, who also lived in the same house. Stevenson ended up taking the blame for the crime, but this was highly suspect. What was his motive? It was Harry Robertson, who had been having an affair with Thurman. And not only that, but she was also known to have been seeing about a dozen other prominent and powerful men on the side as well. Could they have somehow been involved? Till this day, the case is still murky. Number 3, the Dingus Tunnel. One of the few ways to reach the small remote town of Dingus in Mingo County. 2 hilarious names, Dingus, Mingo County. Anyway, the only way to really access this small town is through the Dingus Tunnel, a mile-long, single-lane tunnel that is said to be haunted. The town of Dingus was pretty lawless back in the day. A large part of the violence came from the fact that the locals did not like outsiders, primarily those that didn't look like them. African Americans and Chinese immigrants coming through the tunnel would often come face to face with angry locals at the other end, brandishing guns, looking to keep them out. Now, aside from the violent and dark history here, the tunnel's also seen a large number of accidents throughout its history. It's just dangerous. The tunnel is narrow, dark, and once again, only 1 lane, so collisions have been known to happen. You probably all know where this is going by now. Yes, we have another supposedly haunted tunnel on our hands. People have heard disembodied voices coming from its depths, full-on apparitions, and if ghosts do exist, with all the dark stuff that's happened here over the years, it makes sense that this would be a hotspot for them. In at number 2 is Mothman, a true star of the cryptid community. If there was a Mount Rushmore of cryptids, Mothman would be right there with Nessie, Bigfoot, and the Chupacabra. The legend began in November of 1966 when several residents reported seeing a strange human-sized creature with large wings fiery red eyes, and a moth-like appearance. Witnesses claimed that this creature could fly at high speeds and emitted a high-pitched eerie screech. The sightings of Mothmen were accompanied by various reports of unexplained phenomena, including electrical disturbances, strange lights in the sky, and eerie encounters with the creature. The events culminated in the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge in December of 1967, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. Some associated Mothman sightings with this disaster, that perhaps the creature was some sort of harbinger of doom. Finally, we have the legend of Screaming Jenny. The railroad tracks in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia are said to be haunted by the tortured spirit of Screaming Jenny. At some point in the mid-19th century, shortly after the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad was built, the storage sheds along the tracks were abandoned, and these sheds became the perfect shelter for homeless residents of the area, one of which was Jenny. Jenny didn't have much. That's why she was living in a shed next to some train tracks, after all. She did odd jobs here and there to help sustain herself, but at night all she had was her small fireplace and whatever little amount of food she could afford. One night she was drinking some soup, shivering over her fire, when a spark landed on her clothes, slowly setting them on fire. Jenny was too tired and cold to notice, though, until the fire burnt through to her skin, and she immediately stood up and began doing what a Screaming Jenny does best: scream. She ran from her shed yelling for help and was too busy being on fire to notice the lights of a train heading straight for her. It's said that one night, about a month after Jenny's death, a train driver was passing by the same area of track where she had died. He saw a figure writhing on fire in the middle of the track. He couldn't stop the train in time, but ran back to the area once he was able to stop to okay or help them the best way he could, but there was nothing there. To this day, especially on cold autumn nights, some residents claim to hear the ghostly screams of Jenny coming from the tracks.
Then with our number 10, the Mothman. Let's go back to November 12th, 1966. 5 men were digging a grave at a cemetery in Clenadin when they claimed they saw a man-like figure fly out of the trees and over their heads. 3 days later, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant told police they saw a large creature with red glowing eyes in their car headlights. They described it as a large flying man with 10-foot wings. It was following them near an old World War II munitions plant. The legend of the Mothman was born. In the days after, more people reported seeing him. 2 firemen described it as a large bird with red eyes. About 90 miles away, a man from Salem said he saw a creature in the back of his barn with 2 red circle eyes like bicycle reflectors. For the next year, everyone was on edge, expecting to see the Mothman swooping down on them at any moment. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. Now, engineers blamed a defect in the suspension chain. Others said the Mothman sightings had something to do with it. As the years went by, experts tried to explain away all the different sightings, saying it was hallucinations or sleep paralysis. The Mothman story went cold for about 50 years. Then, in November 2016, WCHS-TV published a photo from an anonymous man that people claimed was the Mothman. See for yourself what you make of this famous urban legend picture. If you're excited to play the next Fallout game, it might not be that long till you meet the Mothman for yourself. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Snarly Yow. Some call this the Banishing Dog, the Black Dog, or even the Dog Fiend. Whatever people in West Virginia call it though, this phantom dog has been seen by a lot of people. It's described as large, black, and teeth-bearing, appearing in front of people's cars on the dark mountain roads, but when they hit it and get out to check, the dog has disappeared into thin air. It was first sighted in the early 1800s, where it would chase people on horseback, in carriages, or donkey carts. It has continued this habit into modern times, only now it can be seen keeping pace with cars going at 55 miles per hour. If be told, locals don't really know how fast this thing can actually go. Although many people have reported seeing the creature, it has never actually harmed anyone as of yet. This kind of unnerves some people though, who worry, what does it really want from the people it terrorizes? Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Sheepsquatch. This one is also known as the White Creature, a monster said to roam the Kanawha Valley. It's been described as a bear with the shape of a dog, if you can imagine that. It has huge saber-like fangs. Its wool is a dirty white colour, hence hence the sheep part of its name. Despite its lumbering appearance, the creature is fast, moving at lightning speed. Perhaps what's most creepy is its tendency to switch from 4 legs to 2 when it moves, making it seem very human-like. Its screams in the night have been compared to the sound of someone being murdered. Then there are the attacks. Here's where things get really weird. People always say that the creature jumps on them like a wolf, sinking its teeth right into their flesh, making them howl out in pain, but then when the attack is over, they look down to find there is not a single mark on their body. That's better news than an actual mortal wound, I guess, but most people who have seen the Sheepsquatch hope to never again. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Flatwoods monster. Some also call this the Green Monster or the Phantom of Flatwoods. The legend of it began in 1952 after a group of children claimed they saw a UFO crash behind a hill not far from the town. They went out and told Kathleen May, a local hairdresser, who came with them to inspect the crash site. From the top of the hill, they saw a pulsing red light. Then their flashlights landed on what they described as a man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed hood-like shape. They said he was 10 foot tall. His eyes emitted greenish orange light. His body was dark green in colour. Kathleen May said it had small claw-like hands and a head that resembled the ace of spades. According to the group, it made a hissing sound as it approached them. One of the kids dropped the flashlight in fear and they all fled the scene. Some have said the sighting was nothing more than a common barn owl, but many in the town believe it to be true. Even the welcome sign says Flatwoods is the home of the Green Monster. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Grafton monster. As the name might suggest, this comes from the old railroad town of Grafton. There may not be room for a mysterious creature among the many buildings and houses there, but the place is surrounded by dense woodland, and that's where locals say the Grafton monster lurks. Ever since the 1960s, people have reported seeing a man-like creature resembling Bigfoot or the skunk ape. They say it stands between 7 and 9 feet tall and is cloaked in pale skin that is slick to the touch, kind of like a seal or dolphins. Local farmers report it the most, saying it tears down their fences and strips their trees of fruit. Those who have got close enough described it as being able to run extremely fast and having a foul odour. Perhaps the strangest description, although rarer than the rest, is that the Grafton monster is headless. Others say witnesses are mistaken and it only appears headless because it tucks its head low to its chest. Some say you'll know it's near when it lets out a low whistle through the trees. Next up now at number 5, we have the Bunny Man. This one sounds cute, right? You guys might have thought we were taking a quick break from scary halfway through the video. Or no, it's just getting worse. The Bunny Man legend began with 2 incidents in Fairfax County in 1970. The first came from Air Force Cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée. On October 9th, the couple were returning from a football game around midnight. They parked up to visit a relative when out of nowhere, a figure ran up to the back of their car and smashed the front passenger window in. They looked up to see a man in a white suit with long bunny ears. The Bunny Man screamed that they were on private property and trespassing. The couple sped away and later found a hatchet that was used to smash the window on the floor of their car. 10 days later, a construction man called Paul Phillips was on the same road. He approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished home. He described him as wearing a grey, black and white bunny costume. The Bunny Man began chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe, saying, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head." The police investigation was closed due to the lack of evidence, but more than 50 other people came forward claiming to have seen the Bunny Man, many of them on that same stretch of road. Even to this day, locals have reported seeing freshly skinned rabbit carcasses hanging from the overpass of what is now known as Bunny Man Bridge, a sure sign that this axe-wielding fiend is nearby, waiting to bust you on the head. Next up at number 4 now, we have Mamie Thurman. On June 22nd, 1931, the body of a young woman was found slain near the town of Rogan. Her neck was broken, her throat cut from ear to ear, and she had been shot twice in the head at close range. The motive or culprit was a complete mystery. The whole town was shocked. A local handyman was convicted of the crime, but there was still a lot of questions. Her death certificate states that she was buried in Logan Memorial Park, but her funeral home records said her body was transported to Kentucky. However, the cemetery in Kentucky has no record of her interment. One night after her funeral, it was also said that a local businessman paid $1,000 to move her body to a different location altogether. To this day, it remains a mystery where exactly exactly she was buried. According to local folklore, many claim that her ghost now wanders the hills, searching for the person who took her life, as the handyman was not to blame. Others said she waits on that same road, waiting for justice. Many have seen her there, saying she hitchhikes with truck drivers only to vanish into thin air. People who park on the hill say they felt her push the car up. Nice, but no thanks. Next up, number 3 now, we have Screaming Jenny. The story goes like this. Along some railroads in West Virginia, there were some abandoned old storage sheds. The poor had moved in there to escape the harsh winters. A sweet woman called Jenny lived there. She had fallen on hard times, never had enough to eat, and the small fires barely kept her alive. Still, she did everything she could to help those around her. On one cold autumn evening, she sat shivering over her fire when a spark flew out and lit her wool skirt on fire. She was so busy eating her broth that she didn't notice until the fire began to scorch right down to her skin. She leapt up and threw the broth all over herself, but that didn't stop the fire. She began screaming along the tracks, begging for help as the flames engulfed her whole body. She ran for the nearby train station, hoping someone there could help, but by now she was a glowing inferno, a ball of fire that looked barely human. In her pain and confusion, she didn't see the train rounding the curve ahead of her. Her scream stopped as the train mowed her down. The station crew found her dead, still burning. They put her out, gave her a funeral, and buried Jenny in the local graveyard. She was quickly forgotten. Then, a month later, another train was rounding the curve on the tracks when it hit another screaming ball of fire. The crew expected to see another mangled body burning, but this time there was nothing there. It's been that way ever since. Train drivers in the area say they still see Screaming Jenny, especially on the anniversary of her death. It seems she's locked in an eternal loop, still desperate for the help she needed in her final moments. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Ogua. Quite simply, the Ogua is a river monster. It's said to lurk in the waters of the Monongahela River in Marion County. Its legend goes back to Native American tribes who lived along the riverbanks there many years ago. It's said to be a serpentine creature of up to 500 pounds in weight, with a reddish brown colour and deadly razor sharp teeth. It's also amphibious and has been known to clamber onto land if it needs to. It stays hidden in the waters during the day, coming onto land at night to hunt for prey. Apparently it even hunts deer. Yeah, fully grown deer. It waits along their paths and then thrashes them into submission with its tail before dragging them into the river to devour. Of course, if it can bring down a deer, it wouldn't have much trouble with a human. Some people don't even go near the places where it's sighted, at least not alone. And finally, number 1 now, we have Droop Mountain. On this mountain, there was once a very fierce battle during the American Civil War. Many lost their lives, and the blood spilled that day is said to have soaked into the very mountain itself, changing it forever. They say the cries of war still linger on Droop Mountain, forever lost in time. Visitors have reported that something just feels off when you're up there. At night, there is no mistaking it at all. One woman who was raised beside the mountain reported seeing a man standing up on the old battlefield. His body glowed in the darkness, and to her astonishment, he had no head. Whenever they shone a light on him, he disappeared. Another time, the woman was walking with her husband and cousins when the whole group stopped in their tracks. Up there again on the old battlefield was a transparent soldier on his horse. The soldier seemed to notice them before turning away and vanishing into the trees. Even skeptics have reported seeing the figure of a headless man drifting along. Those who have got close say he is wearing a Confederate uniform. Now others say his head isn't actually missing, it's just been shot off. To be honest, I'm not really sure which one of those is scary. But either way, I don't think I'd head up Droop Mountain at night by myself. But I don't know. Would you? Would you want to visit any of the places we've talked about today? Maybe you guys have already, especially those of you from West Virginia. 1 state down, 49 more to go. Which one shall we go to next on our scary urban legends road trip? West Virginia is going to be a hard one to beat, I think. Let me know. Thanks for watching. As always, guys, my name is Danny Burke, and I will see you all in the next one.
It's about the real Bermuda Triangle and the secrets that make it so mysterious. This has to be the most mysterious location on Earth, and well, we might just have some juicy details for you. Click the video now.